The state of Kentucky has always been a stronghold of authentic Americana. Beyond rolling green landscape and fried chicken, there are two signature goods that have put bluegrass country on the map: thoroughbred horses and bourbon. In this double spotlight, take an inside look at the million-dollar racehorse breeding industry, get tips on how to pick a winner.
A lot of length to his hip, good hind leg.
You just shut your eyes and pick one. There you go.
Discover the process of making the world's best bourbon.
Is this sanitary that I keep dipping my finger in there?
And get advice from the experts on how to enjoy it.
My wife and I have always enjoyed our bourbon with Coke.
Don't mix it with Coke and don't mix it with any soft drink, please, by gosh. Don't do that.
I'm Laura Nieto, inviting you along in the spirit of true Southern hospitality as we discover signature Kentucky.
The horse and bourbon industries have thrived in this region partly due to a very specific part of the landscape.
Kentucky has an excellent source of water. It's limestone water. And one of the reasons why the bourbon industry settled here was because they had access to never-failing springs of good, clear water.
The limestone, seen along just about every highway here, also makes the grass rich in calcium and phosphorus, making the horse's bones grow strong.
About 76% of the winners of the Kentucky Derby were born in Kentucky. And that alludes to the quality that we produce in this state. We're not just producing a four-legged animal. We're trying to produce the best thoroughbred athlete that we can. It goes to the infrastructure that we have here in Central Kentucky, the quality of veterinarians, blacksmiths, farm managers, nutritionists. We know how to raise a good horse.
Of course, it takes way more than a 9-to-5 to raise these champions.
The management personnel for the different areas of the farm actually live on the farm. While they have days off and they go on vacation, they're actually here 24/7, 365.
You got to do it because you like it. I mean, I love animals, period, and I've been around them all my life, and that's why I do it.
You know, once horse racing catches your heart, it kind of throws it out into the outfield, and you're never getting it back. It is what it is.
But all this dedication doesn't go for nothing.
We feel that our quality allows us to say we're the horse capital of the world. It's a global industry. We produce the horses here so that they can race throughout the world.
The whole $1.6 billion industry starts at top breeding farms like Adena Springs, owned by Frank Stronach. It's here that stallions are bred with brood mares to produce what will hopefully become the next generation of champions.
For the past 10 years, the offspring from the Adena Springs stallions have seen more purse earnings than anywhere else in North America. Something to smile about.
A stallion's stud fee, that's the cost to breed a mare with him, can skyrocket when his children win big races. Adena Springs' pride and joy is a stallion named Awesome Again.
Now, folks around here call him the plain brown rapper, but you are looking at currently the #1 sire in North America.
This big boy's stud fee is $75,000. Awesome Again is the only stallion to ever win the Breeders' Cup Classic, and then sire 4 other Breeders' Cup winners, one of whom is Ghost Zapper. Hold up. Awesome Again? Ghost Zapper? Where do these crazy names come from?
The horses get their very unique names from Mrs. Stronach, who sometimes asks for suggestions. In fact, it was at the request of her granddaughter that a young, very successful filly was named Bubblegum.
As for Ghost Zapper, success on the track earned him the coveted Eclipse Award for Horse of the Year in 2004. But if you want to talk big stud fees, you'll need to head down the road to Gainesway Farm, where their stallion Tappet charges $125,000 a pop.
You know, it is a large stud fee, but he is one of, if not the premier stallions in the country right now, so he demands that.
After poring over a stallion and mare's pedigree, racing history, and physical attributes, a match is made, and then it's off to the breeding shed where, well, the magic happens.
One thing that's unique about the Adena Springs breeding facility is the stallions are kept on one side of the room, the mares are prepped on the other. This means that they are all kept in one safe, controlled environment. Preparing a mare to be covered by a stallion, and yes, that's the professional term, is quite the operation. She'll be wearing leather booties in case she's in a kicking mood, and in some cases, a leather shield to protect her from being bit.
Thoroughbred breeders must have precise timing because only 3-year-olds run in the biggest stakes races like the Kentucky Derby. So when a foal is born has a big impact on how they fare on the racetrack.
The gestation for a broodmare is 11 months, and the breeding season in Kentucky starts around February the 10th. The birth date for thoroughbred horses is January the 1st, and so everything turns 1 year old no matter when they were actually born. What you don't want to happen is you do not want those mares to foal in December, because when January 1st rolls around, they're automatically a year old. If you have a foal that's born in December, you're way behind. You can't catch up.
Barring any miscalculation, once a foal is born, stands up, and nurses on its own, the contract is complete and that big stud fee is due. Next up, the journey from colt to fully trained racehorse, and tips on how you can pick a winner. And later, we'll learn why the only proper way to toast Kentucky is with bourbon, when Signature Kentucky returns.
This year, we're celebrating Christmas. That's right, Christmas, the holiest of holidays that's become too taboo to even mention. And while the PC police are trying to replace our Christmas trees with holiday trees and Christmas shops with holiday shops, we'll hold true to our values and traditions because we believe that no one should have to fear celebrating their beliefs. So, in this joyous holiday season, we wish you a very Merry Christmas.
AWE is bringing you Next Stop, a 30-minute window to the culture and life just outside your hometown. With rich history and signature events, you'll be prepared for every meal,
my goodness, that's good,
attraction, and character, showing you what the world has to offer in the most unlikely of locations, so you can plan your next stop with ease.
Swiss chocolate, Swiss cheese, Swiss watches, Swiss Alps. Get ready to take off to Switzerland to explore this country's first-class quality of life this weekend on Wealth TV.
So now that your prize thoroughbred has been born, how do you prepare them for a career on the track? Social skills are key. Young horses gradually move to bigger and bigger paddocks, allowing them more room to exercise and play.
We take our colts and put them all out on a big field together, put the fillies all together and let them, run, play, and bite and nip and kick, But I think they do better if you put them together and let them used to be knock around each other. Then when you get to racing, they sort of handle it better. But that's what I think.
Once January 1st rolls around, they officially become yearlings, ready to be auctioned and begin their training.
They're over a lot of the baby stuff. They're ready to really start learning, but they're fresh slates. They don't have somebody else's mistakes all over them. You have the opportunity to teach that animal from the beginning the right way.
We have buyers that come to our auctions as numbered 50 countries, 6 continents. We have sheikhs, we have princesses, we have representatives from the Queen of England that come here to purchase. We have owners of NFL franchises that come here because they want to be in the horse business.
At the Thoroughbred Center in Lexington, Kentucky, Don Combs prepares a new generation of racehorses. But it was in 1970, with a chestnut stallion named Dust Commander, that he became the youngest trainer ever to win the Kentucky Derby.
There haven't been any younger since, because I was just a little young guy and nobody knew who I was. They didn't know who to interview after the Derby.
What's his best bit of advice?
My theory has always been take really good care of your horse, keep them really happy, and they'll do the best they can for you. All my people are kind to horses. We don't beat, jerk, snatch. I mean, it's kind. We do it through kindness to keep them happy.
About 900 thoroughbreds at this facility work and train for their next big race.
I like to let my horses get used to, doing this a little bit, and then we get up to Little Eves and get galloping. And when they get used to the new surrounding, like when you send them to a training track or something, or if you have a track on the farm, then you start going through the gate, then look at it, walk through. About the point you start breezing it. You start at like going a quarter of a mile or something like that, just a little faster. Or you just 2-minute legs and then just a little faster, and then you get 3/8, half mile, 5. You sort of build it up. If you work the time, first thing you know, you're ready to run. You have to know your horses, and trainers, good trainers, they know where their horses are, what they need.
Even after spending a huge amount of time and money on a horse's training, like most things in this industry, delivering a winner is never a sure bet. In 2006, a 2-year-old named the Green Monkey sold for a record $16 million. He never won a race. However, there are others who far exceed everyone's expectations.
Seattle Slew sold as a yearling for $17,500. That's a modest price in our industry.
I don't think he was a really great confirmation. They wouldn't have named him Seattle Slew, but they can overcome those things. They can be a little off in the knees, or they can be a little crooked here or there, and they can be just great.
Seattle Slew was more than great. He went on to win the Triple Crown.
That's the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont.
Only 11 horses have ever accomplished this feat, which hasn't happened since 1978. So granted, it's a gamble, which is why even the experts have a tough time picking a winner.
Selecting a champion racehorse is a really, really subjective process. It's a little bit like the wine business. Everyone has their own personal taste about what they like. And at the end of the day, there isn't a rule. It's more of an art than a science.
I think a lot of times when people go to the races for the first or second time, they innately pick maybe more winners than more seasoned handicappers do, just out of good luck. So I would say go with your gut. Go with what you like, bet $2 and have fun.
Some girls like the looks of the jockeys. There is our eyes. They like the looks of the oh, there's a pretty horse. Gray horses, like to bet on gray horses. You just shut your eyes and pick one. There you go.
Jim McKay, who was with ABC Sports, Wild World Sports, he coined the phrase, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat. That is about our industry. Why do people get in our industry? Because of that thrill of possibly having that one big victory, the Kentucky Derby. And even if you're not from Kentucky, when the horses leave the saddling area and start out onto the racetrack, they play My Old Kentucky Home. And you will get goosebumps if you're human.
Up next, things get especially spirited as we move on into Bourbon Country when Signature Kentucky returns.
The story of Hanukkah celebrates a great miracle. More than 2,000 years ago, the land of ancient Israel was conquered. Its most sacred temple was desecrated, and Jews were forbidden to practice their faith. A patriot named Judah Maccabee and his followers took a stand for freedom and rose up against their oppressors to take back Jerusalem. When the Maccabees returned to reclaim their holy temple, the oil that should have lasted only one day burned for 8. That miraculous light brought hope. The word Hanukkah means dedication, and the message of Hanukkah calls on us to dedicate ourselves to recognizing the miracles in our daily lives. His dedication has the power to lift our souls and to make us better people and to make the world a better place. Happy Hanukkah.
From all across America, we're bringing you ideas that are larger than life. These are the homes that inspire luxury beyond your wildest imagination. Homes that turn extraordinary dreams into vivid reality. It's all coming up only on Wealth TV.
Few drinks have as rich and as American a history as bourbon. Its origin dates back to the late 18th century when what is now Kentucky was Virginia's wild frontier, ripe for daring souls to lay claim to.
The settlers brought with them the essential parts of civilization. They brought axes and hoes and plows and distillery equipment. In early America, it was very important to work hard, play hard, and drink.
The settlers originally made whiskey out of rye, but a big surplus of corn inspired them to switch their stills over to this crop. The biggest market at the time was farther south, so once the whiskey was barreled, it was floated on the Ohio and Mississippi rivers down to New Orleans.
The barrels that they would use, they would collect from various sources such as nail barrels, cracker barrels, herring barrels, whatever they had.
Over the 6-month journey down the river, the whiskey picked up the flavor of the barrel's previous contents. When customers in New Orleans started complaining about the taste, the distillers began burning the insides of the barrels to sanitize them.
Unbeknownst to them, not only did they sanitize the barrels, but they also caramelized the natural sugars, and the heat brought out the natural flavors in the wood that the trees have absorbed through their root systems.
This made the whiskey sweeter and take on a darker color.
And the people in New Orleans started asking for that red liquor from Bourbon County, and that's how bourbon actually gets its name.
To see how bourbon's made today, we found our way to one of the most popular distilleries in the area.
Welcome to Buffalo Trace. We are situated here on roughly 110 acres. We have about 80 buildings on the site, and we are the oldest continuously operating distillery in the United States.
Continuously operating because most other distilleries were forced to shut down during the years of Prohibition, from 1920 to 1933, when Congress made it illegal to process, buy, or sell alcohol.
However, in their infinite wisdom, they did declare that whiskey had a medicinal value. If you went to a doctor back then and he or she prescribed medicinal whiskey to help cure your illness, they literally would write you a prescription for up to 1 pint of 100 proof whiskey every 10 days. So they allowed 4 distilleries to remain open to distill. We were one of those 4 and the only one in Kentucky allowed to remain open to distill medicinal whiskey. Fortunately for us, we had lots of people with lingering illnesses, so our doors have never been shut. We've always been open.
As a rule, bourbon must be at least 51% corn, and Buffalo Trace is well stocked.
We use about 240,000 pounds of corn every day we cook. The corn is dropped here. It's put into our silos. The corn comes from our traveling hopper. It's like a big measuring cup. The corn is ground like cornmeal. From there, the corn is dropped directly into one of our pressure cookers. We have 3 10,000-gallon pressure cookers inside. Each pressure cooker holds approximately 15,000 pounds of corn, and we cook 16 of them every day.
Ooh.
Smells like corn pudding, doesn't it?
Yeah, it smells like cream of corn soup.
After the mash is cooled down, it's filled into giant tanks, and yeast is added.
Our strain of yeast was isolated by a PhD around 100 years ago. It is what makes our whiskey taste different from everyone else's. It is so important that we have it kept in 5 different countries. If anything catastrophic should happen and we lose our yeast strain, we can go get it and retrieve it.
So this is 66 pounds, and this is 1 day's worth of yeast.
Now, if you just stick your finger underneath that and taste it, you will see what the yeast are after, what they enjoy.
Goodness. Okay.
Sweet.
That's really good.
Yeah.
The yeast consumes the sugars in the corn so that gradually the brew becomes less sweet and more alcoholic.
This is beer stage of alcohol. Okay.
It smells like beer.
Taste it. We'll taste the alcohol, but it would also be very sour as well. Because remember, no sweetness remains.
Like a very sour, light beer.
This one is in the process of fermentation. You notice the bubbles? We are not blowing or stirring this. This is the yeast working.
Is this sanitary that I keep dipping my finger in there?
It's a distillation process, remember?
All right.
Whenever it stops bubbling, the yeast have consumed all the sweetness. They basically die off. Then we pump it over and run it through the still.
Then it's sealed in charred white oak barrels and stacked in massive rick houses, buildings that can store up to 25,000 barrels at a time.
The way these work is warm weather causes the cells of the wood to open up or expand, drawing the bourbon into the wood. When it gets cooler, the cells contract, forcing the bourbon out. And we have 4 very distinct seasons and seasonal changes, so we have a constant movement of the bourbon in and out of the wood, getting the flavors and the caramelized sugar, which gives it the color that bourbon has.
So you said there's 18 years worth of
roughly bourbon
in these warehouses.
In all of our warehouses here.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we're set.
Yeah.
We have a good stock for 18 years.
Right.
Depending on the type of bourbon, barrels will sit in here for 5 to up to 27 years before getting uncorked and bottled. Some select reserve bourbons at Buffalo Trace still get bottled by hand.
Hand bottling doesn't make the bourbon any better. The only reason we hand bottle is the pace of hand bottling suits the supply. In here, a good day, 606 bottle cases. Most of the premiums are done in 6 bottle cases.
So the Blanton single barrel that Buffalo Trace makes is a very special reserve, not just for the bourbon itself, but because of the packaging, which has been a very highly acclaimed bottle. And the corks that are used to close the bottle are all unique. They're collector's items, and each cork shows a jockey in a different point of the race, so that at the very end you can see he's won the race. His hand is up in the air. But what's even cooler about it is that in the very bottom of the horse's foot there's a letter. And so if you collect each one of the cork tops, it will eventually spell Blanton's. It's like a very grown-up version of the Happy Meal toys that you can collect.
Up next, we ask a genuine Kentucky colonel how to drink bourbon like a pro.
Because we've been getting all different kinds of answers.
Well, you're going to get the right one here.
When Signature Kentucky returns.
Today on One America News, ISIS militants shoot down their first coalition warplane over Syria and capture a Jordanian pilot. Plus, storms are making holiday travel plans difficult for many, but in Mississippi, the weather has turned deadly. Details at 5 Eastern.
Start the new year off right and make a resolution to watch the HD free preview December 29th through January 5th. Experience your entertainment in stunning high definition. Enjoy HD sports, HD movies.
Don't just stand there! That's a lucky glass.
You darn tootin'. HD shows and more for free. It's a resolution you won't want to break. Mark your calendars and don't miss out on the HD free preview.
There is no car in this accident. Because there was no accident. Volvo's most advanced accident avoidance systems ever. The future of safety from the company that has always brought you the future of safety. Give the gift of Volvo this season, and we'll give you your first month's payment on us.
Despite its rich history and a distilling process steeped in tradition, bourbon can be a very hip drink, as demonstrated by the swanky Bourbon Classic in Louisville.
Since we started the magazine, we've noticed bourbon has
You know, it's really grown into a frenzy nationally, even globally.
We basically want to give folks an excuse to make the bourbon pilgrimage. You know, there are a lot of great distilleries in about an hour stretch between Lexington and Louisville.
And we're in the heart of Bourbon Country. You know, we see great events going on in the major urban gateways, San Francisco, New York, Chicago. You know, they all have great whiskey spirit events. We wanted to do something that showcased bourbon. And beyond just that, you know, we wanted to do something that showcased the city of Louisville's progress in the culinary and the cocktail arts.
With so many bourbons to choose from, you could spend a lifetime in the state and still not taste them all. Ask most Kentuckians what the best bourbon is, and you get a similar answer all around.
The one in my hand.
However, there's a little less agreement when it comes to the right way to drink bourbon.
My wife and I have always enjoyed our bourbon with Coke.
Don't mix it with Coke and don't mix it with any soft drink, please, by gosh, don't do that.
This is something you're meant to savor. This is a relaxing type beverage. We don't really advocate pouring a lot of Pepsi, Coke, Sprite, etc. in it, because with a good bourbon, you don't need that. With the younger bourbons, you do. And that's why everybody makes bourbons at different price levels.
I would definitely lament on, if you're just starting out, it's important when you look at that bourbon to actually look at the proof of that bourbon. To be bourbon, it's got to be at least 80 proof. So the lower proof you have, the lower alcohol you have, and the more flavor you're going to pick up, so it's not going to overpower those taste buds.
Almost every master distiller, they've all told us, starting out when you do a tasting, always consider adding some water. Just cutting it down a little bit, you're not going to lose any of that flavor, and you actually pick out a few other nuances.
For a tried and true set of bourbon tasting rules, we visited Colonel Michael Masters, proclaimed Kentucky Bourbon Master. He and his wife, Margaret Sue, host traditional Southern dinners and bourbon tastings at their home in Bardstown, a historic building called Chappie's House, built just after the American Revolution. There's no denying the Colonel loves Kentucky and loves his bourbon.
I don't know about you. When I retire in the course of an evening and wait for my dinner, I'm going to have a big glass of bourbon. I might even have 2. If my friends are around, I might have 3. People ask me all the time, what is the best way to enjoy bourbon? What I say is recognize the history of the bourbon brand that you're drinking. It's like dating. You know, you need to get to know the person, you need to get to know the bourbon brand. That distillery distilled the bourbon brand to be exactly the way you're receiving it. Go through a bourbon tasting with it. You'll want to admire the color. You'll want to swirl it along the glass, admire the legs coming down. You want to nose it very shallow. Then what you want to do is put it on your tongue, just a little bit. It's very mild, isn't it? And if you'd like to add a little water, then if you'd like to add a little ice, go ahead and do so. I ask people all the time, they say, would you be offended if I have a Coke right next to it? Of course I'm not offended. We're Americans. We have it our way, each and every time. So what I say is, you've bought your bourbon, sir. If the way you can enjoy it best is to have a Coke chaser, here's your Coke, sir. And I toast them to your health.
A tip for other bourbon beginners out there: when in Kentucky, an authentic mint julep is an absolute must.
We grow our mint here in a garden, because when we have bourbon tasters and people for dinner that come from all over the world, in the summertime, that's the one thing they ask, can we get a mint julep?
Now, we always use 2 jiggers for a drink, because we don't like weak men, weak women, or weak cocktails. I think a lot of times you'll see a green concoction that they call simple syrup, mint syrup. I'm telling you, we've got a mint garden out here. Probably has 2,000 sprigs of mint, and I could boil every single sprig for an hour and a half. It would never turn green.
We usually put mint in the water, bring it to a boil. You could make it and keep it in the fridge for a week.
The tradition is you never stir a mint julep, because you want the bourbon and the mint to get acquainted. It's a very romantic drink. Just take a sip out of your straw, and the second sip will be better than the first sip, and your third sip will be better than the first and second, so forth and so on.
You can see why this is the drink of the Kentucky Derby.
Yes.
I could rock a big hat with a drink like this and horses.
Absolutely.
I'd be very happy.
That's what Kentucky's all about.
Neat, iced, or mixed. No matter how you enjoy your bourbon, you know you're partaking in a great American tradition and celebrating a spirit that's flavored Kentucky culture and the inescapable Kentucky charm.
People come from out of town. The first thing I want to do, I want to take them to a couple distilleries, show them how bourbon's made. I want to take them to a horse farm so that they can put their foot on the third rail and watch the thoroughbreds run. Then I want to take them back to my house. I want to serve them an excellent steak and a good bourbon whiskey. Yes, Kentucky hospitality is its finest, and I don't think anybody in the world does it better than we do.
Join us as we attempt to get our ocean-going sailboat right across France. We navigate the small canals, visit little towns, and get the flavor of life inland France, this time on distant shores.
I wanted to break away to see the world.
I longed for excitement, the romance of travel.
So we built a boat.
And now we travel the oceans.
Coming to France, this is what I always dreamed of. A little provincial town on the rivers, and 300 years ago, they created an incredible network of waterway to transport goods, and boats could get back and forth from the north to the south of France. And this time on Distant Shores, we head into this fantastic old historic waterway, heading right across France.
Last time on Distant Shores, we navigated the Seine River from the English Channel to explore Paris. Now we need to get across to the Saône and Rhône rivers to reach the Mediterranean Sea. There are 4 options: the Marne, the Bourgogne, the Nivernais, and the route we'll be